Everyone's talking about fast electric cars, but today we're going to talk about fast electric motorcycles. It's Alta Motors. Today on After Drive, roll up your pant cuffs and watch us. Okay, so welcome to After Drive. We're in the new Classic Car Club Aviary on Pier 76 in Manhattan. Mike Piccinello, Zach Mosley, and Marc Fenigstein from Alta Motors. Today, that sounded like a question. It's not a question, it's Alta Motors. Think motocross, think supercross, and think electric motorcycles. It's actually a very cool thing and something that I can't imagine, but we're gonna talk about it today and why I should be imagining it, right? Gentlemen?
Yeah,
I
let's talk about it.
All right,
You
so
lost me, but yeah.
was that a pretty awkward intro? All right,
Exactly what you
all right,
said.
I don't care.
Yeah,
Let's
good.
just go with it.
Let's go with it.
So, all right, so Mike and Zach, tell me about this new place that we're sitting in.
This is Pier 76.
Yeah.
New home of the Classic Car Club. It's our mega world-dominating capital of the Classic Car Club. So we're right across from Javits. Anybody should come check it out. We haven't designed it yet, but it's a really cool space. We're on the water. We could have sip cocktails outside on the Hudson.
It's really nice.
And this building has a lot of cool history. It used to be part of the shipping movement in America. Most recently, it was the home of the NYPD mounted unit. So it was once a stable for horses. Now it is a stable for our fine automobiles and motorcycles.
And birds.
Yeah,
And birds.
Well, and ironically, the horses went to the Mercedes house. Yeah.
I know, that's weird. Yeah, we were
Mercedes
talking
built
about
a
that.
brand new flagship dealership in this luxury condo building behind it, and they put the horses on the ground floor. So horses moved in the car building, cars moved in the horse building. The birds haven't got the memo yet. The birds are still here, but we've given them an eviction notice. They're going to leave soon.
They're magical birds, by the way, because they literally fly right through the glass doors.
Like they
there'll be a
sneak
gap
under
that
the
big.
doors. It's amazing. And also, we have motorcycles in the car and bird building. Right. So that's cool. Alta Motors, Mark is here, San Francisco based, right?
That's right.
It's got to be hard to build an electric motorcycle.
Yeah, it's not easy. We've been at this for about 6 years. First 4 years was just pure technology development in one of my co-founders, Derek's machine shop in the middle of San Francisco, in the old Ham's Brewery building. So once beer, then motorcycles.
Wow.
It's a logical progression. So 4 years of heads down technology development to get the state of the art to where it needed to be to do what we wanted to do with this bike, which was take gasoline bikes head on and build a better motocrosser. And so then it's been another 2 years from there to actually bring this bike to market.
So what happened technology-wise to make this possible? Because I remember a few years ago, electric bikes were heavy. They were getting pretty good, but then all of a sudden, like now a viable motocross bike is possible.
A couple of things, all happening at once. Part of it is battery technology, and so battery chemistries, they're improving every year, and especially the type that we harnessed for this bike was on a pretty steep improvement curve. But we then developed a whole suite of new battery pack technologies, and I think people tend to think of them as one and the same, but you actually need both to build a complete pack and to build it at the smallest possible size and weight. And then we had to architect this entire drivetrain and chassis as a system to be fully optimized, kind of as close to the theoretical limit of what each part could do as possible, and all working together so that there's sort of no extra mass. They're all shrink wrapped to each other. And if you combine all of that, we were able to get to a point where we could build a bike that we feel like is very competitive with anything combustion based out there.
It has been, though. So tell us a little bit about race history. So very, very early in the company's history, you guys have taken one of the first bikes off the assembly line.
Yep. Well, so racing is in our blood, especially Derek, my co-founder I mentioned earlier. He was essentially born on motorcycles. He's a third generation pro on both sides of his family. So I don't think we could not race, even if we wanted to. And obviously we built a race bike, and we've had a couple of opportunities to put them into races. The first one was in November, part of the West Coast Supermoto Series in Sacramento. And in that race, funny kind of side story is our rider had literally never ridden Supermoto before. He's a motocross pro, but he'd never even been on a Supermoto bike, let alone raced Supermoto. And 2 days of practice, and then he blasted through the 250 class. Started on the back line as an unranked rider, won his heat, started in the pole, walked away with the 250s. So then we put him in the 450 class, started on the back row again, passed every rider in the field but one. The guy in the 450s that had the pole, he had built out too much of a lead for him to be reeled in, but
he was closing on him though.
He was closing on him, yeah. If it was a longer race, we might have even reeled him in.
So, sanctioning-wise, are you allowed to do that, or was it more of an exposition kind of thing?
This is a regional race, so at the national level, we are not officially sanctioned yet. We built the bike to make it as easy as possible to get it homologated for lights class. That was kind of our benchmark, and so we did everything we could to match weight and power so that it's an easy process, but it's not homologated yet. At regional and at local level, it kind of depends on the race organizer and promoter. Most of them that we've spoken to have been really receptive. You know, anything that is bringing more riders to the races and bringing more attention to the races is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, so the only thing you're not getting is the smell of two-stroke oil, like thick in the air, that bluish haze that everybody equates with motocross and
Cancer.
perhaps.
Yep, we have less cancer. That's true.
So what is it that you think has made it perform so well? I mean, we know from our experience with electric cars, torque delivery is instant. So I guess that pays some dividends on a motorcycle as well. What else is making it work so well for the riders, even in the early days?
Well, so you guys are good folks to talk to us about, because I'm sure you've encountered spec sheet racing, right? And on the spec sheet, like I said, you know, we built the bike to line up against 250s, and that's about what it looks like on paper. The reality is a lot like what you were saying. The way electric delivers power ends up being really different, and gives us a couple of advantages, especially in control. And that was actually the genesis of the entire company, was this moment of realization that what makes especially a motorcyclist fast, but also a driver, is control, your ability to actually put power to the ground. All right, so you can have a 200 horsepower bike or a 1,000 horsepower car, but if you're not actually getting that power through the tire's rubber and into the pavement, right, you're not going any faster than the guy in the Miata who just passed you, on the outside. And electric has the potential to create, the most direct connection from your wrist to that rear tire possible. And now with a couple of race results, that hypothesis is bearing out as true. And what we find is the more challenging the conditions are, the bigger advantage we have.
So tell me a little bit about developing a torque curve for a bike like this, because with combustion engines, it's basically you're just pulling different levers of whether it's leverage of the crank and airflow and all those things, but you can literally look at an algorithm and steer the torque curve into anything you really want. Is that how that works? That's how I see electric cars.
It's somewhat true in that with an electric motor you have nearly infinite control. But the truth is you really don't want to manipulate the torque curve. The big benefit of electric is that you have smooth, consistent, flat, available torque, and the available part is important. I think people think light switch in their head, and it's not that. It just means that if you ask for it, 100% of it is available, but if you only ask for 2%, you only get 2%. And the great thing is, when you ask for 2% of it at 5 miles an hour, you get 2%. If you ask for it at 15 miles an hour, you get 2%. It doesn't depend on where in the rev range you are or what gear you're in. Right. You're always getting the same delivery, especially versus the 250s, that's a huge benefit. On a race tune 250, they're really peaky, so you are always hunting for the torque and shifting and slipping clutch, and you're just trying to manage that drivetrain to get to the power. But we have done a huge amount of work. A lot of our development effort was in our motor control and the hardware and the software. So while the torque curve is really consistent, fine-tuning that what I ask for, what I get part of it has taken a lot of work, and making sure that the responsiveness is right. I think there have been other electrics, and depending on how they were developed, sometimes there can be delay when you shut off the throttle, or kind of weird anomalies. Because we developed both the hardware and the software, and then we also put a huge amount of time into fine-tuning it, we've been able to eliminate all of that. And it's surprisingly hard to make an electric intuitive. We worked hard to make sure that happens.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I can say, having ridden it myself, and I'm a pretty novice rider compared to a lot of guys in the room here, but
don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, I have enough mechanical sympathy and race enough cars and stuff that I kind of know what goes into the basic controls of it. But to be fair, when I was first learning to ride a bike and had to manage clutch, and I was learning on an MV Agusta Brutale, which had an on-off switch throttle.
That was your first bike.
Yeah, my first bike. So I'm aware of the kind of barrier of entry on motorcycles. You have to learn how to manage the machine, this with a very simple, very predictable, very linear throttle, and nothing else to worry about. I was able to really kind of focus on riding and enjoy it more, also without the kind of blatting sound in my ear and all kinds of other heat and other distractions that kind of make the whole experience intimidating. Mm-hmm. But I imagine on someone that actually knows how to ride, that's just taking all its available bandwidth of focus that you can then get back to controlling the bike more. You don't have to worry about all this other stuff, and you can go faster. Is that likely true for the guys that actually know how to
totally
ride?
True.
I found I had the privilege of riding both formats, motocross and supermoto, and riding supermoto around the streets of Manhattan, which is riding a motorcycle around the streets of Manhattan is not for everybody. But if you do it, you sort of love it. It's its own sport. And people say, oh, you need a loud bike so people can hear you. First of all, I will dispel that rumor, because in New York, nobody cares that you're on a motorcycle. It doesn't matter how much noise you make or how little, they're gonna run you over if they wanna make that left. So what I found was I had a lot more awareness of what was going around me, because I could hear everything. Also, for me, it was one half completely civilized way to ride a motorcycle around town, and the other half really savage. And by that I mean, like you said, you have less. You're not managing an engine, and I love managing an engine. It's not part of really riding. It's part of riding a motorcycle, but you're doing two things. You're riding this thing. You're going fast. You're riding yourself, and then you're managing the beast that's letting you do it. With this, you don't have the noise. You don't have the thumping. You don't have any vibration going through the bike that's separate from the inputs that you're giving it. And I didn't have to manage that engine. So cutting through traffic, for instance. Normally you'd be slipping the clutch, keeping your revs alive, doing all this. I just rolled on, gave it 3% of power that you said, just went through it. I was able to keep my eye on what was going around me. It's just really nice. I was at a red light and I was talking to Zach. I heard my phone ring while I was talking.
That's a weird thing. Hearing your phone, it's like, however, oh wait, let me get my phone.
However, it is New York, right? So first of all, the roads are a mess. And I was able to just pile on the throttle and get the weight off the front wheel. Not doing wheelies down the block, but just get take on anything.
It's hard not to. You go into your higher torque mass. For sure.
And then you get to a red light, you split through the cars, you're at the front. What you want to do on a bike is get away from the cars, because they're the things that are going to kill you. Simple little roll on the throttle, and you were gone. Like, you look in your mirror, and those cars were 2 blocks away from you. So it's not slow by any means, and it's just a really nice power. You just hold it and you just go. Where I didn't have to shift in the third, I didn't have to do any of that. And I find myself doing things like weighting the outside peg when I'm cornering. I never do that around town. You would do it on a racetrack, but it makes you a better rider. On the dirt side of things, which I am not very good at, I started riding motocross last year to be better at the road. And so I have an exact knowledge of how bad I am at it. So when I ride on a combustion bike, which is what I had been doing, I'm losing traction all over the place, and I'm the last to know it. Like the bike knows it, everything knows it, and then I'm like, oh, here I'm sliding and I'm crashing. Where on this, I didn't have that twin, really thumpy feel. I didn't have all that noise, and so there's a level of connectivity to the tires that I never had before. The minute that those knobbies started to just slide a little bit, I could feel it. I could hear it. I could hear the dirt sliding around differently, and it's just different. It's just better, really, in a lot of ways. Again, I could work on my positioning on the bike rather than making sure I'm in the power in the right gear, because once you come up to a jump, you better be in the right power band. Otherwise it's just going to go wrong for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, what have pro riders said to you when they get on this for the first time? I mean, are they?
What I told them was.
Well, but I mean, like,
yeah, we heard that.
there has to be but I don't mean that you're not a pro, but I mean like a racer, like a guy that's going to be, in the, like, are there differences that are palpable to them, or do they just pick it up?
So, it is, in a lot of ways, it is really familiar. We worked very, very hard to maintain chassis dynamics, rider ergonomics, center of gravity, the way the bike rolls, handles, all of that. But the truth is, all of a sudden the clutch lever is gone, your shift lever is gone, and these are tools that, you just described them as kind of mechanical complexity, but they're tools especially to the top pros. Right. So it's interesting. Sometimes the more capable the rider, the longer the learning curve, but it's the difference between a 30-second learning curve, maybe a 1-day or 2-day learning curve. We had Josh Hill on the bike about a month ago.
Josh Hill, by the way, is?
Josh Hill, 75, was a Supercross pro, recently retired, but still very capable, and I think he does a bunch of free ride, freestyle stuff. Okay. And usually we put someone on the bike and we point them towards the trails to just get a feel for the thing, just get used to it. We pointed that way and he went straight onto the motocross track on terrible conditions, loose, dry, dusty, rutted, at the motocross track in Hollister. It's not a kind of, it's fun, but it's not, the pro level, national level motocross track, and just railed through it at faster pace than we'd ever seen anybody on the bike. And his second or third day on the bike, he was hitting 80-foot metal ramp, freestyle jumps, throwing crazy whips and running a full Supercross track and hitting every feature. And Supercross especially is this incredibly precise sport, right? It looks easy because these guys are so good at it and they always take off and land in the right spot. But you can't do it on a bike you're not comfortable with. So the feedback so far is the first thing is everyone's surprised it's a real bike. I mean, everyone says it that way. I can't believe it's a real bike, right? Which as actually that's exactly what we were going for. Yes. And then they start to correct for all of their biases. They're like, oh, it was so much better than I expected. It's not a toy, it's not a toy. And then they realize oh wait, I like this more. And
you said a lot of times they're faster than they were on 250s, where they feel like they might have been slower. However, you show them the lap times.
Yeah.
Suddenly the interest really starts to kick in there too, right?
Yep. We've had a few that they feel like they're ready to take it racing at that level. Like I said, we're not homologated yet, so that might be a little while. But couldn't be happier. I mean, it seems pretty universal from beginner intermediates all the way up to the pros, and on the same bike, which is crazy.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too. I mean, I'm a pretty diehard classic car guy, and part of that for me is the kind of mastery of these awkward machines. I love, early 911s, whatever. And the reality is, in today's spectrum, they're like fast farm tractors. They're really agricultural. You got to learn to master the machine. But when you learn that, it's rewarding, and you feel like you're having a great experience, even if you're going slow. That's good for old nostalgic guys like me. But if you actually just want to go fast, none of that matters.
Speed.
And you see that happen in automotive motorsport. Like, all of us enthusiasts are hanging on to manual gearboxes, but the guys that actually want to go fast don't really care about any of that. They just want whatever makes them go faster. Paddle shift, if it's going to be electric, it's going to be whatever. And I can imagine this is going to really pick up when these guys realize how much faster they can go.
Well, so I'm actually that nostalgic guy as well. I drive a 30-year-old car that starts every like 4 out of 5 times, and then I have to like, jiggle the harness on the back of the intake to get the throttle position to work, and then it fires up and it's fun. And I love that car, and I love having a manual even in San Francisco. And it was something that we were worried about when we first got into this, of like, were we gonna take some of the fun out of it, especially after we've spent decades mastering, or we think mastering, those skills. But what Mike was saying earlier has been the result, is that the bike ends up revealing so much new stuff, new feel, because the reduction in, especially in vibration, a little bit in noise. You always hear like top world superbike or GP pros or motocross pros like talking about front end feel and like when it's slipping and all of that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, sure, I feel that too. Yeah. I'm like, no, and I don't feel that on whether it's on my R6 or on my 250. On this bike, all of a sudden you actually feel what the front end is doing, like before it's doing it, and to like make that leap as a rider is way more rewarding, at least for me, than the loss of that mechanical interaction and that
exactly. It's giving you the tools to go faster, and also it's freeing up your focus to concentrate on riding. I mean, that's like when we go racing. The first time out every season, I feel like I'm going fast and making lots of noise and shifting a lot. I'm like, oh, wait a second, what am I doing? I'm just spending all this energy doing stuff that sounds fast and is slow. But then I kind of get my focus back and I say, look, I can change gears half as much and probably get around quicker. Right. And then I can focus on steering and balancing the car and manage my inputs and looking ahead and just being calm and focused. And I think this gives you an environment to do that and really enhance your riding.
Exactly. I think in race trim, bike or car, you're one of the parts. Yeah. The human, you're the most important part on it. If you could just do it, you have to do and not manage the rest of it. The less you do, the quicker you are.
Yeah. So what's next for you guys? Are you going to push for homologation? Are you going to go into different areas, sport bikes or anything like that?
So we're starting work on homologation, both AMA, so US and FIM, international racing, with the goal of getting it into lights class MX2, which someone out there knows what that means. There are a lot of pretty exciting new formats that we think the bike could do really well in, and so we're going to try, I would say, a very broad set of competition, just to find out what the bike can do. And the crazy thing is like we're still discovering what's possible, and a lot of that discovery could only happen once the bike was truly ready. So those early years, you can speculate. Now we have this thing. We feel like it did, what we set out to do, and now we're like finding out, oh, it can do this, it can do that. So there's a bunch of other race formats that I'll keep close to the chest, but keep an eye on it. And then the next steps after that, the technology that we built changes the equation in more places than just motocross and in supermoto. First order of business is to get this bike out there, make sure it's well supported, make sure customers love it as much as we do. But very quickly after that, we want to see everywhere else we can put the tech. And if we're able to build something that is faster, more fun, more confidence inspiring, makes people feel better, we're going to go after that anywhere we can.
Cool. Well, best of luck on it. Marc Fenigstein from Alta Motors, San Francisco. Check him out. Is there anywhere you can probably go to YouTube and watch some of the races?
Our Facebook feed is actually the best. That's where we post most of the latest videos and images up.
Yeah. And that's After Drive for today. Don't forget, watch us again. We'll be around next week or sometime thereabouts. See you guys later.